At the turn of the century, making pianos in Australia was a healthy industry, but in the 1970s the market suffered a severe slump.
We built a lot of pianos in Australia from about 1890 through to the mid-1970s. Nothing has been built since. However, we have imported over 200,000 pianos since 1970, so I think it's high time we started to make them.
This Stewart & Sons concert grand piano is the result of years of research based in Melbourne. The University of Newcastle has adopted the project and plans to set up a manufacturing workshop.
And the research initiatives will continue based on the technology we've developed, and hopefully it will lead to small-scale manufacture.
Valued at around $150,000, the piano is the largest ever built in Australia, featuring 2,000-year-old Tasmanian hewn pine.
And the legs have been covered in brass and gold-plated to try and tie in with the colour scheme.
It's a research and development project with huge potential.
Well, I think there's tremendous import replacement potential and, of course, export, particularly at this level, because we're not producing a commercial product. We are producing a piano for the artists.
The Falcons went from 3rd to 5th on the ladder after their away defeat at the hands of Brisbane last weekend. Tomorrow night will be just as demanding, but a challenge that must be overcome in the race for the top 4 and home court advantage during the playoffs.
We feel that we should be able to win our home games against anybody in the league. The Magic are the top, so it's a great challenge and a great opportunity for us.
The Magic has an impressive 8-1 record on the road, which will also be tested against Illawarra tonight. Falcons captain Butch Hayes is not concerned with the deliberate attention Reggie Smith received last week, which was authorised by Bullets coach Bruce Palmer.
I wouldn't be surprised if, since he and Brian Gorgon are good mates, I wouldn't be surprised if the Magic tried that this weekend. But there's no worries.
Souths are unchanged tonight, while the Marlins have moved captain Mark Jones from fullback to 5'8" for the sudden death encounter. Not so tomorrow, when Curry and West resume their rivalry in the major semi-final at Maitland. David Smith returns from injury for Curry. The Bulldogs wary of the Rosellas, particularly their in-form pivot.
West are obviously the team to beat. They've got some very good players. Steve Story, I rate as probably the best player in the competition.
In rugby union, the Wildfires take on West Harbour at the home of New South Wales Rugby Union, Waratah Stadium at Concord tomorrow. Locally, the competition resumes tomorrow after a week's break, with just 3 more rounds before the semis. In soccer, Adamstown play their last game in the State Super League on Sunday, while the second last round in the local competition gets underway tomorrow. And in touch football regional finals, Glendale High School defeated Cardiff 6-5 in extra time in the boys, while extra time was also needed in the girls, Foster downing Chatham 4-3. The Westfield Hopetown Relay started from Sydney's west yesterday and wound its way along the coast to Wyong. Raising money for Wyong's Hopetown School, the event was over 12 10-kilometre stages, many athletes using the race as preparation for the city to surf. In the Lake Macquarie Classic, about 200 riders put themselves to the test over the weekend. But 2 riders grabbed most attention, local Danny Ham and Sydney's John De Stefano. One of the up-and-comers in super and motocross, Ham took out the senior 125 class, with De Stefano second. The result was reversed in the 250s, with national representative Craig Anderson crashing while leading. And in State League softball, the Castle Lakers Strikers beat Tamworth 7-3 over the weekend. They lost both other games, but midway through the season are equal second in Division B.
Rosemount Wines is fighting the mines and now the government all the way. From here it will be through the courts. The company says yesterday's approval for a giant open-cut mine within kilometres of its Muswellbrook vineyards cannot be accepted.
We believe that the Minister has denied Rosemount natural justice in this matter. We believe that the environmental impact statement supporting the project is seriously deficient.
It's expected the mine would generate more than $250 million in export each year. That's a total of $5 billion over its 21 years of development consent. And the company says there could be another 40 years of life in the mine after that. While Rosemount says coal dust will affect its grape production, the company Bengalla Mine says environmental controls put on the project are the toughest ever set in the state.
So we believe a new benchmark's been set in environmental requirements for this project.
Despite Rosemount's legal threats today, Bengalla Mines was relieved to win consent. It has already spent $20 million in planning for the mine. The project will create 300 jobs when the mine begins operating. Muswellbrook Council says it's a boost the town needs.
Is put the confidence back into the business sector. I believe we were very close to a stagnation point because people were just waiting for things to happen.
More than 1,100 people are currently awaiting elective surgery in the Taree, Great Lakes and Gloucester region. The list has increased by 50 in the past 2 months, but expansion of services at the funds available for the purpose of reducing waiting lists, and the manning has become a priority.
The armoured vans at Armaguard and Brambles weren't moving today. The guards on strike over safety issues. 2 weeks ago, 2 guards were shot in Sydney in separate incidents. 1 man was killed. The union called a statewide strike yesterday, calling for improvements in safety for their members. In Newcastle, 44 Armaguard and 23 Brambles workers have manned pickets.
Processing your transaction.
Local banks and building societies say there are no difficulties with money supplies this week, with no problems for Pension Day tomorrow. But if the dispute continues, banks will be tested after this week's bank holiday Monday and no deliveries today. One prominent bank took matters into its own hands when the strike was called, a staff member admitting that bank officials picked up cash from Armaguard late yesterday, breaking a picket line in the process. The security guards will maintain pickets tonight and meet tomorrow to discuss an Industrial Relations Commission recommendation. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The body of 29-year-old Darren Spradbrough was found buried on Brian Leslie Smith's property at Yarrowitch near Walker. Smith has since been charged with his nephew's murder. Peter Dykes today told Newcastle Supreme Court that while he was at Smith's property in March last year, he saw a gun on the front seat of Smith's Land Cruiser. He said Smith had threatened to kill Spradbrough. Dykes drove with Smith to a nearby property looking for Spradbrough. Dykes says he asked Smith to let him out of the vehicle. While he waited for Smith to return, he heard what sounded like a couple of gunshots. 10 to 15 minutes later, Smith returned. Dykes told the court, "As I was getting in, I noticed what appeared to be a leg and a boot laying in the back." He says he didn't see the person's face. When the pair returned to Smith's property, Smith drove the tractor down the gully. Dykes says he followed in the Land Cruiser. Smith then got out of the tractor. He walked around the back of the car, opened the doors and pulled the body out. He dragged him out and rolled him into the gully. Dykes says Smith then used the bulldozer to push logs over the body. The trial will continue tomorrow. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
It's the sport that some of us have played around with in the backyard, but this is serious stuff. Not all of it is on the trampoline. Belmont High's Laura Ware showing she's a terrific tumbler. 40 schools, including 200 kids, are taking part in the CHS Championships in Gosford. Belmont High has the lead on day one of the two-day event with 4 gold, 3 silver and 8 bronze. The school is about 30 points in front of arch-rival Plumpton High from Sydney Southwest. Gosford is also bouncing high, grabbing 4 gold. Tomorrow the senior students enter the fray, Belmont looking to retain the overall championship.
The September 9 elections will be a contest between the ALP, Citizens Group, Greens and Independents. Several of the candidates turned out to what they see as an all-important draw for position on the polling ticket.
In our opinion it does, but this is only a personal opinion, and I believe simply because a lot of people vote what is called loosely the donkey vote, I think yes, that's right.
Number 1 on the ticket, Sharon Brooks, a member of the Labor Party but standing as an independent.
Number 1 would have been the preferred position, but I'm quite happy that I'm ahead. I'm very pleased that I'm ahead of my major opponents, who I see as Morgan Jones and John Sutton.
Well, for the Greens, I think the message we need to get across is that if they really want a Green on Newcastle Council in this next election, they're really going to have to vote Green as they never have before.
Peter Brett, an independent, will be in demand for his preferences, and the final 3 places will be taken by Citizens Group Morgan Jones and Independents Rose Cogger and Margaret Gumas. The draw for councillors will be held on Monday. The rest will be up to the voters when they take to the polls on September the 9th.
Their job really is to try and get on to candidates and satisfy themselves as to what their role is in the election, because things have changed here quite dramatically. With ward voting now, people must vote within their wards, and they really do have to get themselves geographically worked out as to where they can vote and which particular candidates they're voting for.
Down but not out, the owners of the beachside Esplanade Motel are determined to battle on with their 8-year-old vision. The long-awaited outcome of a commissioner's report on the proposal suggested it was too big and too high. Residents opposed to the development welcomed the ruling, and it's back to the drawing board for the owners of the motel.
We're not willing to give up. We were disappointed with the residential component being refused. We're determined to proceed, notwithstanding that.
As well as a staged $20 million redevelopment of the Esplanade with suites and function rooms, Daewoo Proprietary Limited still hopes to build a number of adjoining units and townhouses, which would help fund the project.
We have an investment in Newcastle, substantial investment in Newcastle already, and so we're willing to take the knockbacks and to fight on. But there's no question that these sorts of knockbacks would deter any new developers to Newcastle.
On the 1985 telephone funds, I think, a fair while ago anyway.
The actual...
That's right. Thank you very much indeed.
And as a matter of fact, you can actually upgrade this unit at some stage.
Only a handful of southern right whales are spotted along the New South Wales coast each year. 2 years ago, a fortnight stop over in Sydney by a mother and calf nicknamed Glennis and Dennis created great excitement among people out for a rare glimpse. The whales have been known to travel as far north as Coffs Harbour, and this pair, thought to be a mother and calf, have been exploring the reaches of Port Stephens over the past week. The whales are returning to subantarctic feeding grounds. The right whales are so called because whalers targeted them as the right ones to kill. Whaling was banned 15 years ago in Australian waters, and today there are less than 5,000 surviving southern rights from a population once as high as 100,000. The Parks and Wildlife Service enforces strict bans on approaching the whales.
Having beaten Newcastle earlier in the season, Penrith began well against the Wildfires, who, when they did penetrate the visitors' line, failed to capitalise. It wasn't until the 30th minute that Penrith posted first points in the match, then went further ahead when the Wildfires' defence was caught napping on the blind side. Three Roebuck penalties reduced the margin to 1, and when a forward rush started by Stuart Jones left Newcastle with a scrum a metre from the line, back rower John Clifton claimed the 5-pointer and the lead. 2 Roebuck penalty goals increased the margin to 12 before late tries to Chris Williams and Peter Fallon made the final score 36-10.
Thousands gave up their cosy beds for a night in the Sydney Opera House forecourt, huddling under blankets and sleeping bags. A free rock concert helped pass the night away. The Sydney City Mission hopes to raise $150,000 for that city's 3,000 homeless. Hundreds of other hardy souls turned out for a chilly night in Newcastle, where the Hunter Mission had set a fundraising target of $20,000 to aid the Mayfield Community Centre. The centre aids disadvantaged and homeless people. Sleep Out supporters enjoyed bands, sing-alongs, celebrity stopovers and competitions during their 12-hour sleep out. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The entry of Wests into the Rebel League sparked an overwhelming response from members of the club. A huge crowd turned up today to take part in a special meeting to discuss the club's future.
Who's running the show? Where's all the money coming from to pay all these people? I don't want the Mariners.
With no end in sight to the queue, organisers moved the meeting to a bigger venue, the club's home ground, Harker Oval. The crowd of about 4,000 people heard arguments from both sides in the battle for Wests. Members for and against addressed the meeting, together with the board and Mark Sargent. The former Knights captain, now signed up with the Mariners, urged the members to stay with Super League. His words, though, were ignored. When the vote was taken, an overwhelming 75% wanted the club to withdraw from its involvement in Super League.
That's the best result I've ever had in my life. One's enough teams in this town.
Club members voted to retain the board and the way they're elected. While West boss Bob Ferris was heartened by the personal support, he was surprised by members' opposition to Super League.
In hindsight, I think possibly we should have had an information meeting earlier on and help sell the message of Super League, just what it can do for the area.
The board will consider the members' demand at its meeting on Wednesday fortnight. Jane Anderson, NBN News. In days gone by, taking rubbish to the dump meant doing just that, tipping it into landfill. The Summerhill Waste Management Facility instead encourages people to recycle their rubbish. People put their waste into different bins, some for glass, paper, plastic and greens. It will cost more to toss rubbish that hasn't been sorted.
The things that we've got here are leading edge in Australian waste management, and it's quite an asset to Newcastle.
What can be recycled will be. The rest, though, is dumped here in landfill. On present trends, it'll take 2 years to fill this section of the dump. If more people use Summerhill's recycling facilities, the life of the landfill will be extended, and that's something Greens councillor John Sutton is keen to see happen.
If the council is, as it has claims to be, committed to waste minimisation, a major part of that is recycling, and it should be developing pricing strategies that will provide incentives to people to bring recyclable goods.
The facility, which is located on a former mine site, was officially opened by Local Government Minister Ernie Page. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Jeffrey Woolrich, I dream he's still
on my side. He filled my days with endless wonder.
The Rescue Service's larger helicopter, the Bell 412, had been in the air only about 10 minutes on a routine test flight after an engine overhaul. At 4,000 feet, the drive shaft connecting the engines to the transmission failed. Suddenly, with no power to the main and tail rotors, pilot Peter Cook had split seconds to react.
Really, I had to react basically instinctively and immediately because of the nature of the malfunction that we had. And really the training and the instincts took over for me.
Peter says he then had a minute or so to pick a landing site, but other pilots have praised the skill with which he put the 5-tonne aircraft on the ground without any power. An initial inspection has revealed only superficial damage. Engineers Eddie Van Eden and Mal Castle, who were both on board, immediately stripped the aircraft's transmission. Prior to this incident, the aircraft's manufacturer regarded failure of the shaft coupling as very unlikely. In spite of this, when he was training in the United States at Bell's headquarters, Peter Cook asked to be put through just such an emergency on a training simulator.
It's the only place that you can actually practice that malfunction. You cannot possibly train for that particular occurrence in the real aircraft because it would be simply too dangerous. So that training really has paid benefits today.
The helicopter will remain overnight in the paddock where it landed. After Bureau of Air Safety investigators have carried out an examination and a new tail shaft fitted, it will probably be flown back to its base for a more extensive check. It will be out of service for at least 2 weeks, the smaller Angel 2 chopper providing rescue coverage in the meantime. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Simon Crean is touring the country pushing the government's Working Nation program. In Newcastle, the minister made this promise to the long-term unemployed.
We're saying to all of those people that have been out of work for 18 months or more that we are guaranteeing a job offer. It will either be a subsidised or an unsubsidised job, but we will guarantee you one.
That's to be achieved over the next 3 years. Mr Crean toured the Australian Defence Industries plant at Carrington, where long-term unemployed people are taking part in job training courses. Earlier, the minister called on all local business people to work with the CES to utilise training opportunities and wage subsidies and create a job surge in the Hunter.
7,600 job opportunities by Christmas time, the government working in partnership with community leaders to achieve it.
However, it could only be short work stints like this 26-week job with council for the long-term unemployed working to refurbish local war memorials. General unemployment in the Hunter has dropped to under 10%. When questioned over the 14.8% rate in Cessnock, the minister had this to say.
Cessnock, 14%, clearly too high, but it was a lot higher 12 months ago. I think it was up around the 20%.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The 1995 Newcastle Herald Lower Hunter City host for this year's awards. They have been implemented to Honeysuckle Development Corporation, which is sponsoring the bill.
Design and building industry, and they've taken on the sponsorship role of individual Lower Hunter Civic Design Awards to come forward and make a presentation to John Kilpatrick, I am Mayor of Lakeland.
According to the city's top administrator, the $13,000 pay rise is the only increase he's received since taking on the job in April 1992. During that time, council has embraced a number of new concepts, including enterprise bargaining and the City Enhancement Plan, with the General Manager's performance under constant scrutiny.
There are a number of criteria they judge me on: my communication, strategic planning, how I deal with the councillors, the community, manage the staff, implement the decisions of council. I guess my job rests on that. If I don't perform, then they can terminate my contract.
Mr Grant claims his $153,000 salary package is not as high as counterparts in other cities.
Well, it's an important job, but I don't think it's worth the money that he gets, no.
Oh, it's not bad if you can get it. I certainly wouldn't mind having it.
I'm in the public service and pay rises are still part of the way things are at the moment. But 153 is a lot of money.
The General Manager's pay increase follows a recent decision to cut back on the finances of another civic leader. Council voting a few months ago to dramatically reduce the allowance made available for the Lord Mayor. Mr Grant argues the two issues are not related. As for having his financial situation made public,
I don't appreciate it, but it is a fact of life, and if I didn't like it, then I shouldn't be in local government.
But I must say it's a state response.
I'll find a new place to dwell. It's down at the end of Walnut Street, a big hotel, and I'm so lonely.
If you've ever believed the rumour that Elvis was still alive, you could have easily been convinced one way or the other at NBN Studios today.
Well, I'm seas keep flowing, the desk look dressed in black.
Just when we thought the king was resting in peace, Fat Elvis set the record straight.
I've been here trying to perfect my own cabaret show to take back to Las Vegas. Because I believe if you're going to have longevity in show business, you got to have diversification. And I've been working on magic and juggling.
And what's a comeback without serenading the disbelievers?
A break hotel and I'm so lonely. Yeah, I'm so lonely. Yeah, I'm so lonely. I could die. And I did. Stranger, a break hotel and I'm so lonely. Yeah, I'm so lonely. Yeah, I'm so lonely. I could die. And I did.